You were on the top of the building, air rushing through your hair, your clothes, and blowing in your ears. You looked up and saw the bright blue sky with the clouds moving fast through it, sign of an intense wind activity. When you looked down, you saw the 30 meters that were separating you from the floor, the streets looking like long gray snakes with colorful ants on them. You felt your blood leaving your face and your stomach making knots. You had never liked high places. Only one step forward and gravity was ready to remind you how it worked. Part of you was strangely drawn to it, desperately wanted to jump just to see how it felt to fly for about 10 seconds. Another part of you felt extremely scared and just wished to step back and curl into a ball. The tension between those two parts caused your legs to wobble and become weak, but you held tight and clutched your hands to resist it. You turned nervously the ring that was on your index finger with your thumb. Whenever you felt yourself in a difficult situation, you turned it obliviously. Was this how it was going to end? A fall from the top of the building where you worked? What a pitiful and common death. You turned around to face the barrel of a gun a few inches away from your nose, and you stared into its deep, dark barrel like the eye of a beast, with fear and somehow fascination. "If you move, I'll shoot you," the man behind the gun hissed, the firearm slightly shaking between his hands. He had lost control of the situation. Deep inside, you almost scoffed. Move? Behind you was the void, and in front, a bullet between your eyes. It wasn't like you had a choice. If you weren't that scared, you would have found this comical. But there was nothing to laugh at. Your body was shaking, and you felt tears pricking at the corner of your eyes. Even cynicism couldn't help you from being terrified. And even though you didn't want to obey him or found his words foolish, you quietly nodded, your throat too tight to even pronounce a syllable. A gust of wind passed through you, and your jacket started hitting your hips violently. You grasped it with your shivering hand to make it stop. The man in front of you trembled and drew the gun closer to you. "I said don't move!" In a reflex strictly human, you stepped back, trying to set a distance between you and the deadly weapon. But you realized too late that you stepped on nothing but the emptiness and started falling backwards. A scream got stuck in your throat, and you stared with wide-opened eyes at the gunman, who seemed to be shrinking in size, your brain still processing what was happening, and you felt it, this uneasy feeling of butterflies trying to burst open your guts with the impression to weigh a ton. You were falling. You saw the windows of the building succeeding each other at an alarming rate, and for a split second you thought to yourself, how did this happen? You remembered working in your office, struggling to get your files in order. A warm cup of coffee was steaming next to you, and you could smell its spicy and strong perfume. You could hear the steps of your coworkers in the hallway and the faraway sound of a phone ringing in the distance. Then the minute after, this man had burst into the room. He had tried to rob the bank just next to the building and failed. Therefore, he went into your building, not knowing what to do and deciding to take someone as hostage so the police wouldn't arrest him. You were the closest to the door, hence you were the one he chose. He had grabbed you by the hair to pull you closer to him, then had pointed the gun at you, ordering your coworkers to not do anything potentially dangerous or he would shoot you. You were terrified. You didn't even move. Then everything went really quick. He heard the policemen and the heroes already surrounding the building and obviously decided that the better option was to go to the roof. With you, of course. He had thrown you there, closed the door, and broke the handle with his gun so no one could follow him. You knew that he had no idea what he was doing and was in fact panicking. While he had let you go, you had stumbled backwards trying to find an exit, but the only escape was obviously either death or the edge of the roof, and that's where you went. When you were little, you often felt frustrated to not have a hero-like quirk. Like flying. Instead, you had a useless one that couldn't help you. At least not in this situation. Yeah. Flying would have been great. You felt your head spinning and you closed your eyes tightly, preparing yourself for the shock of the pavement. Even though you almost felt like everything was happening in slow motion, your thoughts were buzzing fast inside your head, numerous and uncoordinated like a swarm of bees. How many seconds was separating you from the floor? How many seconds before your consciousness and life fade away and your brain got turned into marmalade? Apart from the sound of the wind blowing in your ears and the blood pouring in your temples, you could hear the voices of the crowd at the bottom of the building getting closer and closer. The voices started screaming, and you knew why. This was the end. You were about to hit the floor. When you could almost smell the smell of people's feet, suddenly you were stopped in your fall and you blew all of the air that was in your lungs as something held you back. It wasn't hard like the floor. It wasn't soft either. Then what could it be? You opened your eyes and saw two strong and muscular arms holding you tightly. You blinked and turned your head to face chest muscles with blue, red, and white colors.
Have no fear, because I am here,
a deep and loud American-like voice chanted. At first you didn't quite hear it because of a high-pitched noise. You soon realized that it was your own voice and that you were in fact screaming since the beginning. You coughed and stopped, your throat harsh and sore. You looked up to see the bright and comforting smile of a hero that you knew all too well, with his two blonde locks of hair pointing at the sky in a V shape. It was All Might, the #1 hero. He had caught you just before hitting the floor. You weren't that much into the hero culture, but it was definitely difficult to avoid his exploits when that was everything that the media talked about every single day. He was much more imposing than in pictures, that was sure. "Are you hurt?" he asked without stopping his smile, and you shuddered as if he was waking you from a bad dream, which was hopefully the case. You shook your head, and he burst out laughing in a warm and booming laughter which caused you to be shaken. Confused, you looked around and saw all of the crowd staring at you, both with admiration and envy for some. You spotted the paramedics that were waiting for All Might to give you to them. You realized that you were still shaking and had curled your fist around the fabric of the hero's costume, holding it tight. "I'm going to put you down. Can you walk?" You glanced down, and even though you were only 2 meters above the ground, since the hero was a giant, you felt your blood leaving your cheeks and your stomach twist. You gripped his costume even more tightly. "Please don't leave me," you finally managed to articulate, looking straight into the shadows covering his eyes. In fact, you wanted to say, "Please don't let me go," but you mixed up your words. This sounded so clingy to your mouth, the color that had left your cheeks suddenly came back to color your face with a bright red. All Might stared at you with his endless smile, looking slightly confused and somewhat impressed. He laughed, and you were once again shaken by the tremors of his chest. But it was true. You didn't want to leave him. Maybe it was the shock, but you were terrified that he would let go of you. You felt safe in his arms, and since your head was spinning and throbbing, you were afraid that if he dropped you, you would collapse on the ground. You hunched your shoulders and buried your head into his chest, the knuckles of your hand turning white with the pressure. You finally realized that you were about to die, that you were only a few inches away from death, and everything that had happened, the man, the gun, the fall, just hit you like a train. Your body started shaking because of your sobs, and tears started pouring down your face like waterfalls. All Might's costume was starting to get wet because of it, but he didn't let you go. Instead, he started looking around for help, looking very confused and anxious as he tried to think about something to comfort you. "It's okay now. You're safe," he exclaimed with a hearty laugh, trying to reassure you. Obviously you knew it. It was the post-traumatic shock that was making you look like a crybaby. But it didn't make you feel less stupid for crying like this. Each sob was making your head throb and making you nauseous. And suddenly you felt yourself go. You saw blackness surrounding your eyes and everything spinning around you. You gargled a few incomprehensible words before blacking out, your head flopping on his arm. Your hands that were gripping the fabric flabbily fell on your sides, and you heard All Might's voice in the distance as you were losing consciousness.
Oh, they're fainting!
You woke up at the hospital, but you didn't stay there for long. The doctors told you that you fainted because of the shock, but that everything was fine otherwise. They made a simple checkup, and a few hours later, you were able to leave. You learned that All Might gave you to the paramedics and arrested the gunman that was trapped on the roof. You felt bad because you probably held him back when he had to do his hero work. He was as polite as the media described him. He didn't manage to tell you that he needed to do his job. You wished you would have thanked him, though. Just when you were about to pass through the exit, a nurse ran towards you with a paper in her hands. "Here," she said, handing you the small piece of paper. "That's from All Might." The nurse seemed reluctant to give it to you. Maybe she was a big fan of the hero, but she did it anyway. You took it with a rather confused look and thanked her. You started walking again, turning the paper between your hands. "Get well soon. All Might." It was simple, yet very nice. You smiled and put the paper into your pocket. He took the time to write you a little note just so you would feel better. All Might wasn't the #1 hero for nothing. You had interacted a little with him, and it was probably the first and last time you did. It was fine, though. It was better than nothing. You wondered for a second how a man with such big hands, like seriously, his hands were the size of your chest, could have written on such a small paper. You realized while you were walking home that you felt extremely uneasy. It wasn't a feeling like when you feel that everyone is staring at you because your shirt is on backwards, or that the sock in your shoe is slowly sliding down your foot. You literally felt unsafe. You glanced around, and each person walking past you seemed like a potential danger. You felt somehow really anxious. You could hear the blood rushing in your ears and your hands getting disgustingly moist. Someone walked a bit too close to you, and you jumped on the side while the person stared at you in confusion. You smiled awkwardly as you sputtered a few excuses before stepping up the pace, feeling a cold sweat running down your back. "Now you're just being paranoid," you said to yourself as you tightly grabbed the straps of your bag. Someone with a dog walked towards you, and you literally pressed yourself against the wall of a house to avoid it. The dog barked, and you squealed, entirely persuaded that he was going to attack you. The master firmly grabbed the leash and excused himself before walking away. You stayed there, your body pressed so much against the wall that you thought you were going to pass through it, and your heart pounding inside your chest as if it were about to explode. Why were you acting this way? You took this road every single day, so why were you suddenly feeling so scared of your surroundings? You waited for your heart rate to slow down before continuing to walk, even more uncomfortable than you were before. Your street wasn't too far, you thought. It was going to be okay. Only a few steps and you were in front of your doorstep. Easy, right? There was definitely nothing to worry about. Danger was something heroes faced, not common citizens like you. Just when you saw your door, you noticed the mailman searching through his letters in front of it. You don't know, maybe he has a gun hidden in his pocket. The thought just popped into your head and you brushed it off by shaking. You were definitely being paranoid. You knew the mailman. You've known him for about 5 years, and yet you couldn't let go of this insecure feeling telling you that he wanted to harm you. You tried not to look at him, but each step getting you closer to him echoed in your ears. You were persuaded that your heart was going to burst out of your chest. The influx of blood was making your head dizzy. When you finally reached your door, just as the mailman was about to greet you, you stumbled into your house and slammed the door on him before locking it up. You pressed your back against the door, gasping for air, your heart still pounding. You still don't understand what had gotten into you. You heard the mailman walking away and tried to catch your breath. What you knew was that you had just experienced a panic attack. Everything outside was frightening. The people seemed to mean you harm, and the whole world wanted to kill you. Was it the after effects of the attack? You slid a shaking hand on your face, removing the sweat that had fallen on your forehead. It's okay. I probably just need to sleep, right? You said out loud, trying to convince yourself that tiredness was the cause of your reaction. Even though your head was throbbing once again, you walked upstairs to get into your room, your thumb obliviously stroking your finger. You soon realized that the ring wasn't on your finger anymore. Oh no, you whimpered as you nervously delved into your bag, finding nothing. I probably lost it when I fell. You gasped when the flash of your fall came back into your mind and you clutched your chest, feeling the beginning of a panic attack coming. You felt your eyes burning, desperately wishing to drop the tears that was pricking at the corner of your eyes. You flopped on your bed, your bag still in your right hand, and muffled a scream into your pillow. That was an utterly disastrous day. The gunman, the fall, your public humiliation, your behavior, and now the loss of the most precious object you had. Without knowing it, you started slipping into a deep slumber, even though you already slept a lot at the hospital. The sun was setting on the horizon, and in your last moments of consciousness, you thought about All Might.